Okay, hello everyone. So welcome to the session 5 of the Leader's Handbook study session. I'm going to share my screen. Okay. So as before, I uh, I have minimized my screen. I'm using the full presentation screen, so I've minimized my screen. Um, so if you'd like to participate or say something, just say it. I won't see raise your hand. So today we're on module 5 and we'll discuss competency 5 on understanding the interaction and interdependencies between systems, variability, learning, and human behavior, knowing how to affect the others. And competency 6 is giving vision, meaning, direction, and focus to the organization. And these are my usual guys that I always like to uh, give credit to some of my learning. So these are the competencies, as Peter has been very clear, as the competencies in the Leader's Handbook is an elaboration on the system of profound knowledge. And but what he has done very effectively, in my opinion, is elaborated on them in more detail and have really connected all the elements in a cohesive way. And I think and some of it due to his background. He had a diverse background in many disciplines, and so he has brought all of those together and presented that as competencies. Next week we'll come back and talk about to understand the variability of work in planning and problem solving, and then uh, time permitting, we'll talk about breakthrough improvements, and then of course uh, uh, discussing the system of the fallacy of performance appraisal, where Peter was very good at discussing and debunking, in fact, and offering alternatives. So, competency 5 is understanding the interdependence and the interaction between systems, variation, learning, and human behavior. This is really very nice way of putting all of this together, knowing how each affects the others. And he's very clear that competencies are based on Dr. Deming's system of profound knowledge. This is one of the best graphs in the book for me. As you can see here, that these are the pillars of the system of profound knowledge: appreciation for a system, knowledge about variation, uh, theory of knowledge, and psychology. I know I have done this myself. I take these apart and discuss each one of them separately. Um, and I've shown this as four-legged legs of a stool. I think what Peter is saying, that these are all connected. You can't really discuss one without the other, or how one affects the other. And that's what the interdependencies are shown here in this graph. You see these open um, uh, pathways to all of them, and they're all connected. They're interdependent, and they interact with each other. And that's the essence of this competency. And I have some examples. He says it is essential to understand that the four areas are interactive, interdependent system of knowledge. So that in and of itself is a system, as Dr. Deming said, a system of profound knowledge. Um, One cannot fully understand or apply one area of profound knowledge without understanding the other three and how all four areas impact upon each other. So I'd like to make a comment here in terms of what is profound about the system of profound knowledge. Peter said one time he asked Dr. Deming, Peter could ask and say things to Dr. Deming that he could get away. He said, why did you call this a profound knowledge? He just said, well, I had to call it something. So, but but if you really look at the elements of the system of profound knowledge, appreciation for a system, theory of knowledge, knowledge about variation, and psychology, each one of them has been around for a long time. What Dr. Deming did and the profundity of the system of profound knowledge, how Dr. Deming elaborated on those and brought them together as a cohesive and interactive system. I think to me that is what's profound about it, because the systems were around and theory of knowledge has been around, goes back to pragmatism, psychology has been around. Each one of these has element has been around for a long time, independent of each other. But what Dr. Deming did, he brought all of this together as elements of the same system that interact and they are interdependent. I think that's why it's profound. That's what the profundity of the system is, as how they interact, how they are interdependent, and how they are put together as a system. Of course, he elaborated on that considerably too, as we see a couple of examples in a moment. One example Peter Scholtes uses in the book is, I'm in the city of Madison. Madison has a long history of one of the original communities committed to quality, and many of Dr. Deming teachers, students of Dr. Deming philosophy lived here, and so so one of the earliest projects that Peter Scholtes and Bill Hunter, and I'll talk about him in a moment, were involved was in the city of Madison in the early 1980s, where the city of Madison and the mayor was involved in quality improvement and is known as the First Street Garage Project. That very project has is covered, is been dedicated over 2 pages in the Art of the Crisis, written by Bill Hunter. Bill Hunter was one of the early teachers of Deming Way, and he was a statistician at the University of Wisconsin, and unfortunately, he died at a very young age. And he had some literature and some publications in that, and he and Peter actually led that project at the city, and is covered in the Out of the Crisis, and Peter refers to page 45. Incidentally, Bill Hunter is John Hunter's father. If those of you are familiar with the Curious Cat management website, Bill Hunter is his father. What Peter says in this, he said they were invited and they had a lot of problems at the garage, and this is the city garage. They had huge fleets. They provided services to the city parks, to police department, to public transportation, and it was a big operation. And they wanted to look at some problems they were having there. And Peter and Bill got involved in there. He said at their first meeting, everybody wanted to know the morale was low, and they wanted to do something about the morale. He said, I didn't want to touch that. Low morale is a symptom of other problems. Maybe low morale has something to do with the psychology. And let's talk and discuss what are some of the customer focused problems. And they came down with 2 areas. One was they wanted to know what customer feedback was, what the customers think about them. And the customers were, of course, the police department, fleet, and the bus services and park services, and snow removal equipment, all of that. So they came up with two ideas. One was that we want to get feedback from the customers, and the other one was downtime. The idea, there are some of our stakeholders complain about long downtime or cycle time. And he said they put that together and did some research and a study, and they found that the feedback was pretty good. And the customers were very happy with the service. But it just took a long time. It just took a long time. So reducing the cycle time became a project where everybody agreed upon to move forward. So in the context of the reducing the cycle time, they started looking at this, what are some of the factors that affect the cycle time? Hence, they looked at the system. That's one element of system of profound knowledge. And they collected data on the cycle time and the variation in cycle time. And they looked at the second element of that. They proceeded with the PDCA cycle and process improvement and quality improvement and teaching and training. And they provided some knowledge and some theories and some understanding of how to go about improving. And um, that's how they were able not only solve the problem, and they solved the morale problem. So that's how all the elements came together in order to solve a problem. There was the interaction of all the elements of a system of profound knowledge. Of course, they didn't call it that at the time, but all the elements that was necessary. In a subsequent meeting, after some of these projects were celebrated, this is really a very fantastic story. Is that the uh, Bill Hunter in his writing says they got together and says, how about the morale issue? He say, oh, no, that's not an issue. We want to do everything the Deming way. So that's the origin of some of the references to Deming way. And that's how. So Peter makes that example as an example of that all of these elements of a system of profound knowledge, they interact and they're interdependent. Like in this very example, we looked at the systems, we looked at the variation, we looked at the learning and human behavior. All of those came together. So today's problems and needs are very complex. We cannot make progress by applying simplistic solutions to the complex problems. And you can see the morale or low morale was simply a symptom of the problem. And I like this quote by Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes that Peter uses in the book a couple of places. I would not give a fig for the simplicity on this side of complexity, but I would give my life for the simplicity on the other side of the complexity. I think that's really very profound, that today's problems are very complex, and we need this. And that's what the system of profound knowledge is just how that has really simplified some of very profound challenges of mankind, really, and how it offered a way to really address those. As I was thinking about that, I made a list of some of the things that they're complex problems, but we have simplistic management comes with simplistic solutions to them. How long have you heard costs are too high? Costs are high. Do something. I said in so many meetings, cost is too high. Cost is too high. But, and I think this is attributed to Gypsy Rani, costs are not causes, they come from causes. So whatever action we take to reduce the cost is, just working. You don't work on the cost, you work on the causes that produce the high cost. Another problem, lack of communication. Well, if you look at it, as you can't just get people in a room and ask them to communicate. Is what are the barriers to the communication that needs to be addressed? Low morale. Low morale is a symptom of problems. They're not the problems themselves. You hear often, our people are not motivated. So we come up with simplistic solutions like management by objective, bonuses, performance appraisal, carrots and sticks in order to solve. These are simplistic, short-term, in some cases, inhumane solutions to very complex problems. In a company that I did some work for, workplace injuries were a big problem. And then there was all these signs plastered all over the buildings. Safety is your responsibility. Well, it's not. I don't think anybody wakes up in the morning and gets ready to go to work, says goodbyes to family, goes to work so they can blow out their eyes, or get hurt on the job. I mean, it's the environment, the conditions that really cause a lot of injuries. Quality begins with you. It doesn't. Quality begins with the leadership in the boardroom, as Dr. Deming says. How often we hear, and I have heard, the problems with turnover and the idea of the cynical view of people don't want to work, or people are lazy. This is the concept in theory X that we'll talk about in a couple of weeks. There are causes of high turnover, and there are many. And if you look at this and examine the causes, you see that people really do want to work. One problem, poor delivery time. And we need more accountability. People need to be more accountable for what they do. Well, people are doing the best they can. And most of the people's problems that I have observed in organizations is simply have been tried to address by system of performance appraisal, and we'll debunk that later. So I'm going to pause here for a moment. You all have had quite a bit of experience and years of activities. What are some of the examples that you have encountered where organizations or management come up with simplistic solutions to very complex problems in the organization?
I'll quickly share the experience I had about 20 years ago where an executive came to me and said, I think we have a training problem because of the way the organization is performing. And I asked, what is the training you have in mind? And it was all about training the people who are doing the work. Well, it turns out that there were some strategic things that were causing the problems they were having. And I knew this person very well, and in fact had recommended he be hired as a peer. And then ultimately I had worked for him as he later became promoted. And I said, the first thing that might be necessary for training is to train you to think differently about the problem that you have. Maybe there are some causes besides the people need to be trained better or differently. It turned out for that organization to be worth more than $1 billion.
Yeah. Others?
My experience on costs is that the more you try and control costs, the more they go up. So yeah, costs are not really a cause. This is just a symptom. Yeah,
That was just a symptom. Yeah.
yeah.
When you go since you're a man of high position, people, you go in the room and tell them somebody do something, they're gonna do something to reduce the cost, even with the adverse consequences.
Yes.
Just don't just stand there, do something. When the big wheel rolls, all the wheels roll with it. I had a visit with a former student just this morning. He stays in touch with me, and we visit quite often. He's a partner in a in a CPA firm. It says, and that's one of the problems he was talking about. It says it seems like some of the partners or the lead partner, senior partner, it says it seems like every time we have a problem, she brings up accountability. People need to be more accountable. They're doing the best they can. What else? It's the system. It was actually they were talking about cycle time, incidentally. How what's the cycle time of a tax preparation or a financial report? So, anybody else?
You bring up an interesting point about accountability versus responsibility.
Yes.
The people working are responsible for their job, but in that case, that lady, she was accountable to making everything happen. So for her to say everyone else should be accountable, you've got to look in the mirror and say, no, she's the one that actually should be accountable.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that example from the, I don't know, 2008 or whenever it was that the Affordable Care Act was put into place and the website didn't work
I
as
know,
it was supposed to.
lots of money, golly.
And the congressional people were having hearing after hearing after hearing, and they kept asking for who is it that's accountable, and they kept going up the chain of command until they had the Secretary of Health, Education, and Welfare.
Yeah.
And Kathleen Sebelius said, when asked who is accountable for this fiasco, and she said, in essence, let's stop talking about accountability. Let's talk about who's responsible. It was me. I did not understand how complex the technology was and that I needed to encourage other people to do something differently, but it's my responsibility and I didn't fulfill it. And the air went out of the room. I was watching the hearing and I could not believe how she blasted away all the crap that was going on by just saying, I'm responsible. I made a mistake. And then they wanted to talk about, okay, so what can we do to help?
Yeah. In my experience, anytime people use the word accountability, especially the people at the higher level of management, is who are we going to blame?
Yeah.
That's
and if you look up the definition in the dictionaries, you'll find out that that's the difference between accountability and responsibility.
Yeah.
Responsibility is who's supposed to do something. Accountability is who do we blame if
Yeah.
it doesn't work out well.
Yeah. And when we get to the performance appraisal and discuss theory X and theory Y, theory Y is the other opposite of theory X, that people really want to do a good job. It says people naturally want to take responsibility for the work that they are committed to. So if they're a part of it, they just like any decision making, when people are involved in the decision making process, they're committed to it rather than just push down to them. So okay, so let's continue. All right, now I want to share a couple of cases that speaks to this competency and how the elements of system of profound knowledge are really interdependent and they interact. One is an example from Dr. Deming's the neo economics, when he talks about ranking and merit system, that it's futile to try to rank the people without considering the system. And that's on page 25. And it says, let's assume that X is an individual, and we have, this is the contribution of the individual, and let's assume Y is the all the other elements, components of the system, other factors present in the workplace. So X, the contribution from X, and this is the interaction of the individual with other factors in the system. And then you're expecting some assumed output, either 8 calls per day or $8 million sales per year. And he puts that in this algebraic relationship, X plus YX equals 8. That's a good example. So what do we have here? Well, we have psychology in place, we have knowledge in place, we have system in place, we have variation in place, and these are all interaction of the individual with the system. And so the output of the system based on this is, you're assuming that the contribution from X, the individual, the interaction of the individual with the system, gives that result. It says that's one equation with two unknowns. And there is no solution to that. So it's futile to think that you can find or solve for X and you can determine the contributions from the individual. So if you think of that formula, it's all of the system of profound knowledge is really, you can see that in that. It's not buried, but it holds that thought together. I kind of explained when I was explaining this to my student, I developed another version of this, just a more detailed, that I said X is the contribution. So Dr. Deming says there is no solution to this, which is right. One equation with two unknowns. So this is X is the contributions from the person, and this is the contributions from the system, which is Y, and then the interaction of the person with the environment. And it produces a result. And that result may be $8 million sales, or maybe taking care of 10 patients a day, or carrying out 35 procedures per day, or 20 calls per day. There is actually, with the current management, conventional management, there is actually a solution to that. And that solution is the management assumes that Y, all the contributions from the system are zero. There is no contribution from the system, and that's what this indicates. Well, if this is zero, this is zero, this becomes zero, and then the X equals the result. That's the only way you can solve that. And that's explicitly or implicitly, the management assumes that there is no contributions from any other factor in the environment, in the system. And that's why all this performance appraisal and merit system and ranking, all of that comes about. It totally ignores the contributions of the system and the variability in the system and training and education and the improvement policies and procedures in the system. So this is a good example of how this competency, that all the elements of a system of profound knowledge, they actually interact and they are interdependent. Another example is what Dr. Deming from page 37, this is one of my most profound statements by Dr. Deming that really drive the point home with me many years ago. We talk about control charts and variation and talk about processes and special cause, common cause, and all of that. But this is what Dr. Deming says, and it brings all of this system of profound knowledge in perspective. He says the most important application of the principles of a statistical control of quality, by which I mean about the distinction or knowledge about common cause and a special cause, is actually in the management of people. It is in the management of people. how we manage people. And if you really look at that, and here is, I took an example from my class, one of the cases. Here is 10 operators, and this is their performance, and I put it in a control chart to share with the students. You see, they're all in control, meaning they're all from the same system of causes. Only common cause variation present. They all belong to the same system. There are no outliers. There is no high performer and there is no low performer because they both belong to the system. And that's where the power of a statistical control really comes, and what Dr. Deming says. So you put the knowledge of variation, you discuss the system that produced that. You talked about individuals, psychology, where they and improvement. If you want to improve this system, this process, you have to improve the system, and by improving the system, everyone in the system is improved. And then, of course, you have the understanding of variation in there. And this statement alone, what Dr. Deming says, brings all the system of profound knowledge elements together. And it shows how it works in just this very simple chart. Of course, it helps the morale, creates joy in work and pride of workmanship, and all of those goes to the psychology element. So you can the individual's performance cannot be judged separate from the system. Here is the knowledge about the system. The performance of any component within a system is to be judged in terms of its contribution to the aim of the system, not for its individual production or profit, not for any other competitive measures. So these two examples really bring competency 5, that how the elements of system of profound knowledge are interact and how they are interdependent. Any comments or feedback before we move on to the next competency?
It's in our business, it's difficult. The manufacturers are more command and control, and they like to see individual performance, not realizing that it's the system that produces the results, especially sales results or hours clocked by technicians. And they like to rank. They rank dealerships and they rank you on customer satisfaction, and it's very detrimental. But it's the upper management that doesn't really understand it.
Yes. Well, I understand that, Terry. I was a faculty for many years, and I had to grade the students. I couldn't get around that. I'd be called to the floor.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so you just have to become very creative. As somebody told me, answer the question and no more. So,
Yeah.
so I was creating a learning environment, and I had to turn in a grade, but I was making it. It wasn't a painful process. So, but do I understand what you're saying in terms of?
So, Fazel, so there is an argument that within the same system, let's say you have operators and they actually use the same equipment, same settings, that in that system, there are people that perform better, right? Let's say they're producing a product, and we find that on average they can produce 15% more than the rest of the team at the same level of quality than others. And so when we started using these process behavior charts, we started isolating, because that came up, and they said, well, we do have operators that are better within the system. So they spoke in the right manner and talked about how does performance look in the system. And our approach was, what's different about their approach. And we found was that they had found things that they could do. So we said essentially it's not the same system because they've injected things into the way they do the work that is not consistent with others. And by others using some of our, I would even call shortcuts, that they were able to get a similar performance. So it was just interesting that once the team started seeing the performance and started saying, well, wait a minute, what about me? And we could isolate them and say, well, let's talk about what's different. Why do we have one person that can perform at 15% higher output than others? And we started taking it apart and we said, it's actually a little bit of a different system because they're doing things a little bit differently than the rest. Does that have you had that kind of sort of, I wouldn't call it a pushback, but really good questions about individual performance?
Okay. Well, let me share that chart again, because that's a good point.
Fazel, before you do, let me just interject one thing.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm trying to find the chart.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
With a situation like that, I've encountered that many times, and what it comes down to is it could be the same system. People are using different standard work, i.e., they have shortcuts and things. So the system is the same. It's the standard work is not. And so when you bring people together and they start sharing what the standards are, then everyone's brought to the same, using the same thing. So that's how we talked about it. So the system we said was working. It's just people were doing standard work differently. So that's how we addressed it.
That's a great point, Dennis. And I guess I would say that our takeaway was a different standard work is a different system because the standard work is a way of doing work. And if you have everything else being equal, but you have two different standard works, you actually have two different systems. Although, albeit just slightly, you have changed the system because the way they do the work is different.
Okay.
Yeah, but you have a system, and some people are altering it, which is fine. But you just have to get it back into equilibrium. So, if you look at the chart he's showing there, well, the person above might be doing it. It's the same system. It's just the management in the middle of it. It's a common cause type thing. So it's a similar system. But I would, because otherwise you get into the point where everything is a different system. Well, these people start at 8:30 and I start at 8, and this and that and that and then you don't get apples and oranges. So it depends on what you get to. Yes, Dennis.
I've got a thought to share, and once upon a time, I benefited by the method that Mike described, and over time at that same place of employment, I found out that what was going on when we saw that kind of variation that was outside of control limits or otherwise might be considered a special cause is if the work was really standard, everybody would be doing it with the same process, the same steps. And we discovered I discovered over time that we can learn from where there is somebody has made an improvement in the process. They've gone outside of this standard work, and that we learn from those variations to have a way for that person who's doing faster or higher quality, whatever is better in our term, to have them show the other people what they're doing and to make a decision together about should this be the new standard work. So we don't have two ways of doing everything, or depending on how many people are there, everybody does it differently if there's not standard work. And it's just useful to use the variation that we see in the system or in the process to learn a better way.
So
you just move your upper and control limits as you do your PDSA, and you just keep getting your management tighter and tighter. So I agree with that. I like that.
So let me just also interject a couple of ideas. First of all, let's say this is 10 operators doing the same job, and going back to Mike and others' comments. First of all, this system is in control. The word control means it's a random process. It means all of these employees, all of these operators belong to the same system of causes. To say something about this as a high performer or something about this as a low performance is tampering. The only way somebody is exceptionally good or exceptionally bad if either outside the limits on the high side or outside the limit on the low side. So that's number one. We also have, by the virtue of being in control, we have a range of variability, a capability of the process. What that says that this process where these 10 people belong to, on average produces 11.4 defectives. It can go as low as 1.3, as high as 21 and a half. That's what the management needs to be concerned about. You have a bigger problem on hand than this one and this one. So you have a process that on average produces 11 and a half, and it could be as high as 21 and a half. The only way you can improve this system is to improve the system, as Dr. Deming says. And maybe you want to move this average down and narrow the variation. Then you work on the system. Now, when you're working on the system, obviously, you're taking the PDCA cycle and people's input and all of that into account, and through collaboration and teamwork, you come up with some of those good ideas. And that's what Mike is talking about. If somebody has a better idea, that's the time you incorporate it. But not this. If this person was really indeed somebody outside the limits, yeah, let's see what's going on. It could be a mathematical error, could be a fluke, or he indeed somebody outside exceptionally good. Let's use his ideas. Let's take him to maybe do some other things, but as long as they belong to the same systems, just by the virtue, this is a random process. Next period comes around, we collect data on them, and P.S., this person may be over here, just by the virtue of random process. And this person that was so supposedly low performer may be in a different location. So these are very important. The last point I want to make about this, it is actually okay and good to help employees to keep a process behavior chart on their own performance. Let them keep it. And you can work with them, and you can see how they're performing over time. There is nothing, I think that's actually very helpful. They understand the variation. So this is the system that includes 11 operators. And to plug this one out, or to plug this one out and try to do something is tampering. That's overreaction to variation. Because the next period, very well, this person that is over here, it may be over there. This person over here, it may be over there. So it's a random process. It's common cause variation is present, meaning they're all affected by the same system of causes.
I have to jump off. Fazel, thank you so much.
All right. See you.
We'll see you next week.
Yeah.
Thank you. See you, buddy.
Take care. All right. Competency 6. That's the entire chapter 5 is really dedicated to this. I highly recommend it if you're working with groups, organizations. Terry's, is actually has to do these things and establish it for his organization, giving vision, meaning, direction, and focus to the organization. In order to maintain the cohesiveness, important, of an organization and the integrity of its system, all the members of the organization need to know the following. And Peter proposes a set of questions. There is a set of questions relating to the to the purpose and direction of the organization. Who are we? What business are we in? And by extension, what business are we not in? Trying to be everything to everybody. Unless you're like GE, you're in everything. And you end up with nothing. Where are we headed in the long term? Where are we headed in the short term? What values and principles should be characteristics of our relationships and all that we do? These are the organizational the questions facing the organization. With no purpose, there can be no system. With an unclear or inconsistent purpose, the system will suffer from chaos and dysfunction. He also proposes a set of questions regarding a person's job, his or her job. And that would be good questions, Terry, to propose to some of you after you deal with the first set of questions with some of your people. What is my personal job? Answer. I actually distribute that in some of my work, and I ask people to answer it, and I catalog them. What is my personal job, and how do my function fit into the larger purpose and systems of the organization? Why am I doing what I'm doing? For what purpose? What is the best way to do my job? And what is expected of me? By whom? What is a good job? And who defines it? How will improvement be accomplished? Who will do the improvements and by what methods? Who will be involved? How? What sources and forms of feedback will be available to help me know how I'm doing? And of course, these are not just one sitting type of question and answer. It requires a lot of reflection and contemplation and feedback and conversations. And the whole idea is to take ambiguity out of the organization. Organizational ambiguity leads to individual confusion. If we're not clear on this set of questions facing the organization, we create a lot of confusion and ambiguity in response to these questions relating to people and employees. So what these are all from chapter 5, and they're very helpful. What Kano's admonition is, that's Dr. Kano, Noriaki Kano, and the Kano's model we covered a couple of weeks ago. He says, in my work with the Western managers, I found out that they like to go, they want to work on everything and all the time. And so he described as, he said they want to go an inch deep and a mile wide. They have an enormous list of things, goals and directions and things they want to do. He says that's the wrong way to go. He says we would like to go an inch wide and a mile deep, work on a few things, but more effectively. We must learn to do fewer things thoroughly rather than many things inadequately. And I think that was actually the conversation with my student this morning, who is there trying to make some changes. Came up with like a list 5 or 6 pages long that all the things they think they should be doing. I mean, I got dizzy just looking at it. Creating direction and focus for an organization requires that leaders consider all the worthwhile things to do and say no to most of them. Make a list. I like this student has 6 pages, the list. Just take a few out that is important and forget the rest of them. And those things that are important and essential are customer focused. They're customer focused. They're going in the customer direction. Knowing how to give direction and focus is an essential and necessary competency for contemporary leaders. Leaders who don't know how to provide direction and focus to their organization on a daily basis are incompetent. He's pretty harsh there. I would like to say they don't know. Of course, he doesn't use competency and incompetency in a derogatory term. Incompetent means lack of knowledge, lack of knowing. They don't know. If you don't know, unconscious incompetence means you don't know what you don't know. It's not a shame. You just don't know. You don't know. So the purpose and direction gives us and direction, a definition of who we are and description of where we're heading. Directionless and purposeless occur when there is a lack of purpose and direction, obviously, at top management. If there is lack of direction at the top management, there is confusion and chaos at the lower level. Inconsistency of management, too many directions. We've heard this before. Programme du jour, last buhika, that's bend over, here it comes again. I knew a manager who managed by the book of the week, depending on what management book he was reading. Monday morning, we're doing this, we're doing that. So that's directionless and purposelessness, and it creates chaos and confusion among people. I highly recommend this chapter 5, the Leader's Handbook, goes through all of these, and it gives a clear and direct process in terms of how to really begin by answering some of those questions. So a sense of purpose and direction, as I said, says who we are and where we're going. And this is what I really like. A shared vision is the glue. It's the glue that holds people together. It's the glue that holds the organization together and moving in the direction. This is who we are, this is what we do, and this is where we are headed. In purposeful organizations, you walk in there and you can feel that. Okay? It's just like a sixth sense. It's just in there. And that's what Myron Travis called unconscious competence. You do the right thing because you don't know any other way. It should create excitement, learning, focus, boundaries, challenge, and commitment. It's a force in people's hearts, a force of impressive power, a desire to be connected. So I always like to think of that when I think of purpose and direction and vision. It's like I always think of what Peter says. It's a glue and it's a force. It's a force in people's hearts that they are committed to, and it's a glue that holds all of us together and gives us a direction. And in order to develop a purpose, a mission, and vision and values, Peter has some very direct and helpful suggestions as how to go about that. And you can see that on page 174. He says that the initial draft must start at the top of the organization. This is a long process. It's not just one sitting. It begins at the top. Initial draft starts at the top of the organization and then circulated throughout. The leaders share with each other their thoughts on the following questions. And they have to really answer these questions. What do I like, the top management? What do you like about what you do here? What do you like about your industry and profession? What do you like about your company when it's at its best? What legacy do you want to leave behind? What legacy do you think we should leave behind collectively? And as you're doing this, you come up with the methods of achieving those. Visions without a method aren't visions. They are hallucinations, he says. As Dr. Deming says about the story, if you don't know where you're going, any road would get you there. So he also gives some guidelines as how to carry this out. And he's very meticulous to the point. Peter was a master at teamwork, team building, and helping people improve in facilitating meetings, in giving directions, and helping people to come up with a purpose. He was really a master at it. Of course, he wrote the leading book on teams and team building, the team leaders, that came a long time before the Leader's Handbook. It was the Leader's Handbook. And he goes on to say how to do it. Each leader speaks from the heart, take on one question at a time, no disagreements. Look for the common themes, things that are important to us, not a 6-page list of items. Then you circulate the list among people, explain where the list comes from, be transparent with people, what you're trying to do, what you intend to do, ask for clarification and consensus. And then you approve the draft and you circulate the draft for more feedback. As I said, this is a long process, but the whole process itself is the process of learning. It's not the final document that is the aim here, is the process by which you get to there. Just imagine a group of leaders and a group of employees getting together, speaking from the heart. Just the simple question of asking people, how do you feel about this organization? What would you like to do? Where should we be going? When you ask these questions, with people who speak with no fear, no intimidation, and speak from the heart, you'll be amazed how much you can, how committed people are. If people are a part of this process, they become committed. They're committed to that purpose, mission, vision, and values. As Peter said, people don't resist change. They resist being changed. But if they're rather than, as it's common in many places, just show up with a vision statement and plaster it all over the walls everywhere, and I've seen it many times. Oh, here we go again. As we're talking about teams, purpose, and systems, it's important to address two topics. One is the question of teams and teamwork. Peter's really area, and his contributions are immense. He says teams refer to a small group of people working together towards some common purpose. That's a team. That's a group of people. That's different than teamwork. Teamwork refers to an environment in the larger organization that creates and sustains relationship of trust, support, respect, interdependence, and collaboration. A team can only thrive in a teamwork environment. Other it be just all groups of people getting together. Okay? It's like the candy commercial. What was it? The Snicker or one of the Hershey, some candy, puts a group of people in a room and give them some candy and says, don't come out until you solve the problem. It is a mistake to confuse these two, team with teamwork. It is relatively easy for a leader to set up teams, but creating and sustaining an environment of teamwork is vastly more important and enormously more difficult. To create that environment, create that sort of sea of water where teams can swim in. It's inherent in the organization. You are a team because you're in a teamwork environment. And teams are systems too, and they are a part of the system. Without a purpose, there is no team, only aggregate of individuals, and with no reason to be together. Also, a team with a purpose but no method will end up well-intentioned but unsuccessful. I remember I put down here so I can talk about it. I was involved in some of these in mid-'80s, And that's what the time of quality circles. Everybody wanted to start quality circles. All these management groups and teams would travel to Japan and they come back and they want to start quality circles. As though like you can turn a switch on and here are the teams and quality circles. What was missing? The environment. That you collect people and put them together, just you have the appearance of teamwork. But there was no purpose, there is no environment of teamwork, and they end up essentially the employees end up more disappointed because nobody actually is listening to them. I remember I was sitting in a team meeting one time. A production manager came and yanked one of the members out of there. Come back here on the line. And there was it wasn't an environment of teamwork. It was just appearance of that people are working on projects. You might have had the similar experience. Anybody? You know, they just put people together and groups together. Oh, go work on this. You go work on that, and they end up. Sometimes they were actually working counter to each other.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the era of quality circles. We have quality circles.
Fazel, I like your comment about teams, not only the teamwork environment as a system or for the entire organization, and then relative to creating teams, but teams not working with each other, communicating with each other, because those teams certainly will interact and have interdependence within the teamwork environment. But I see that often. Create a team, even if there's teamwork environment, the teams don't communicate or work together. So I appreciate that comment.
Yeah, well, that's a good segue to the next slide, as what you're talking about. This is, you know, for a long time, I used this slide that this is just the elements of the system. You can say teams going in different directions, and then you give them a purpose, and they all move in the same direction. And I've used this a lot, but that's really a limited version of what it should be done. And Peter made it clear to me from the slides in his book. So here is the teams, okay? Excuse me, let me go. Here is the teams. We form teams, groups of teams coming together in separate ways within the organization. The common problem is multitude of teams or groups, each serving its own, presumably worthwhile purpose with nothing aligned to align them. Okay individually, but collectively going nowhere. And this is similar to this. And then you give them a purpose and a vision, and they all move the same direction. And this is what my point is here. That's this graph. Purpose and vision can help align teams, giving a common set of guiding points of focus. This is useful, but not enough. The most important thing, and I think that's what we were just talking about, the environment of teamwork. How these teams are interconnected. They're in the same boat. Beyond a common purpose and vision, the various groups and teams within the organization need to participate in a common priorities and integrated plan of action. This may be working on a project, this may be working on project, this one, all of these teams may be working on different projects, But is it is it for a common set of priorities, an integrated plan of action? It's good that they're working on different things, but is this the organization's common priority? Are we all in the same boat, going in the same direction? We're all going in the same direction here, but are we in the same boat? So here, that common priority and integrated plan is kind of it envelopes all the teams. And that's the network. There is a network of activities linked together here. So these need to be linked together with a network, not just simply going into in the same direction. It says there must be a network of activities linked together to accomplish something of major importance to the organization and its customers. Yeah, this is good. It's great. We're going in the same direction. Everybody's working on a different project. But this one says, well, are these all, is it a network that is connected to our priorities and our integrated plan of action? Is this that network? This is what's needed. Obviously, this is an improvement over that, but this is an improvement over this. This is really purpose, vision, and priority and plan, putting it all together so the teams are directed not only in the same direction, but for the same aim and purpose, same priorities, and same plan of action. Okay. So that concludes the slides, and we have a few minutes for discussion and share your experiences. And
we've worked on our purpose, and not the same format that Peter suggests. And after reading the chapter, I'm going to probably go back to it in the next month and go through the process again, and get, like you said, get the senior leaders in the room first of all, and go through the questions. It's very well laid out.
It is very well laid out. He was a master at this kind of stuff, these topics. He knew how to work a crowd.
He did. Okay. Yeah. He mentions to get a facilitator to do it, like in his notes, because I've tried to do it myself, and it might be better to get a facilitator to, and has anybody had an experience with that?
Go ahead, Dennis.
Yeah. I've had the experience for smaller and larger organizations, and it really does require facilitation from outside so that the people who are the executives don't repeat the same things that they've always said. There's a paradigm that I think I've learned from Dr. Deming, and that is you can't expect different results or outcomes from doing the same thing that hasn't worked yet so far. Yes. And the graphic image that I have about setting an aim is to look towards the distant future, not towards a 1 year or a 3 year program. A lot of people want to talk about an aim and a purpose, looking at a vision, and they get confused. And a lot of organizations that are into lean, and I've been the chair of the lean consortium in Michigan, a lot of people want to talk about the mission. It's all about the mission, and they forget vision. They forget the aim and purpose of the organization. And the confusion around the language is usually propagated by the people who are already in an executive role. So it helps to have somebody guide from outside.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Dennis. If anybody knows of anyone to recommend to do it like on a remote basis, I would sure appreciate it.
So Terry, the other reason for Dr. Deming made a statement many years ago that
Yes.
help usually comes from outside.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and um, that was I was reminded of that when Russell Ackoff said, if we always ask people to think outside the box.
Yes.
It says if you're already in the box, you can't think outside the
Yeah.
box. So
Yeah.
and the other challenge you have, and just based on my experience, by the virtue of your position,
Yes.
people might be hesitant
Yes. Yeah.
to participate or or discuss because so a facilitator can help you uh, smooth through some of these things and kind of that's
Yes.
what it
Yeah.
is facilitate. It won't tell you what to say and what to do.
Yes.
And a lot of captures a lot of these ideas and that would be helpful in that regard. So so maybe Dennis you can talk to Dennis offline and he or someone else could or he can recommend somebody.
Terry, I'd be happy to help you at no cost to you. So
Oh, gee.
just contact me tomorrow and remind me of what I just said. Okay.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that's it's yeah, I've tried myself and I didn't like the process where you like it. I could see it takes time and your point sort of slow and smooth and you have to go slow. You can't really speed through this. There's just, time you go back and forth through all the different areas, it's going to take some time and getting people organized. But I think Mike mentioned it last time he about trust and fear, and he said he was in one organization that where the purpose was so well defined and so clear that it sort of dissolved all the fear in the organization.
Yeah.
He made that statement at the last meeting. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So one of the things, I work with some people of in your position, and um, as you move forward and try to do some of these things, uh, fear is not something that you work on. Fear is the symptom of some other things.
yes, yes,
Yeah, the decision-making process. And like somebody says, you can work on teams and teamwork and preach and all that, and one oh shit, what was that? Can destroy everything. Uh,
yes,
so uh, so um, so as you move forward and proceed with some of these things that you plan to do, the fear will disappear. When people see
yeah,
that you and the upper management is genuinely committed to this and is open and they hear you most of all. Um, Remember that trust has two components. One is that you're competent, and the other one is that you care about me.
yeah,
Uh,
well-being, yes,
yeah, and well-being. So those are some of the things that it just is. It's a process. So um, I wouldn't worry as much about working on fear rather than how can we uh, remove some of these things that causes fear
yeah,
and are barriers to communication. I
okay,
left that one slide as goes along to that. Let me just share that because I like this by Peter. Oops, wrong slide. I'm not going to enlarge it. I'll just show it to you. And Peter says, and I have seen a lot of quibble over purpose, mission, vision. Is this a purpose? Is it a mission? Is it a lot of wordsmithing? Says, I have never seen a company to go in trouble because they could not distinguish them, purpose, mission, or vision. But I've seen many for lacking a meaningful, effective one. So I thought that was really good. And I've seen a lot of slogans and exhortations on display in a lot of organizations. Some are good, some are really they walk the talk. They walk the talk. Some of them are just simply. I remember many years ago when I worked, we had them on all these little pocket-sized cards in our pockets and everywhere. But then the production manager comes and yanks a person out of the team meeting.
Yeah.
So, but
that's sad. One of the things that you just touched on is fear is the outcome from a system of causes.
yes,
And for some time, I've believed and seen the evidence that building trust is a great antidote to the fear that's present. And that requires a lot more effort than throwing
right.
trust out the window and building fear in. It's easy to build fear in. It's really hard to get people to trust you once they've been burnt.
Right. And a lot of simplistic solutions to in this organization I was talking about, this is 35, 40 years ago. We had a suggestion box outside by the time clock. And you should have seen some of the notes people dropped in there, what they thought of the management.
Yeah.
So,
I've seen some of those.
yeah.
I've seen the suggestion box put on the director's desk or on the director's door. And of course, they had an open door policy because they wanted to see who was making suggestions.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of wrong ways to do things.
Yeah. Well, Terry, you find that the team leader's handbook very, very helpful.
Yes.
It's very
Yes.
methodical. Peter,
Yeah.
I wish he was still around. He would have loved to help you, but
I got it right here.
no, he so sometimes you really don't have to go from page one cover to cover. Just you can start with chapter 5. You can start with depending on where you are and what you like to do. He always has very good and helpful suggestions and comments.
Yeah, he does. In fact, the next chapter is about breakthroughs.
Breakthrough improvements, yeah.
And it was during the Ameritech company's breakthrough initiative that I discovered Peter's work in the early to mid 90s. It was a fundamental, it was not quite as connected to his ideas as it should have been, but some of these ideas that were in the book were very useful in trying to implement that breakthrough restructuring.
So Terry, you said that your daughter is involved in the business now?
Yes, she's I'd like to transition out more from the operations, daily operations. Natalie still has two young kids.
Okay, I was gonna say,
Yeah.
this kind of conversation would be something helpful to her and
Yeah.
some kind of involvement, where she can hear these things,
Yes. Yeah.
and be engaged, and even on a smaller scale.
Yes. Yeah. Well, when we do the purpose, we go through the purpose. Yeah, she'll have to be involved, and
Yeah.
and the general manager start with them, and
Yeah.
because I was looking. Well, maybe I'll ask everyone. I was trying to transition out of the operations and look for somebody to take my position for 2 to 3 years to carry on until Natalie's can work more full time in the business once her kids are a little bit growing up a bit. Like they're 5 years old and 2 years old.
Oh wow, they're pretty small.
Pretty small. So it's hard for her to. She wants to be at work more, but she's got responsibility of the kids.
Yeah.
So, did anybody got an experience on that, Dennis or Dirk, about family transitions? Or
Yeah.
Yeah, they're extremely hard.
Yes.
I mean, seriously, the transition is one that I'm experiencing as I'm like the rest of us on this call, getting older by the day.
Yes. Yes.
Um, and a very small firm, but I've been preparing our son and
Yes.
been engaging my wife to be technically she's the president of our company and I'm just the one who does the consulting because
Yes.
my wife works elsewhere. But the idea of having somebody else with knowledge of the business and how it's done, how it works, is something that I've been trying to pass on to our son, who's just about to turn 30, and
Okay.
he's getting his consulting experience someplace else so he can come in and take over when I'm too tired to chase down all
Yeah.
these opportunities.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Well, I hear you.
Yeah.
That's
Succession is a good, succession planning is good, and this kind of planning,
yes.
and um, whoever that you have on mind, or whoever, it would be nice to be involved in what you're trying to do now.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that's then then uh, they're a part of the process rather than here it is.
Yes.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Well,
Terry, if
yes.
I've got a couple of customers, one who's been very successful in the passing it on, the succession planning from a father to a daughter, and if they're willing
Okay.
to share their experience, I'll connect you with them. And
Okay.
likewise, I've got one that was a notorious failure. They
Okay.
didn't follow my recommendations, and I'm pretty sure they won't testify to what they did wrong.
Yes.
But I've had the experience work both ways, thankfully, some time ago, but I'll be happy to make that connection for you if that particular pair of father and daughter are willing to talk about it now.
Oh, sure. That would really be helpful.
yeah. But
Yeah.
you're also developing other leaders.
Yes. Oh, yes.
So
Yes.
Yeah,
it's just not um, that type, succession to your daughter, but business succession, but it's also putting the right people in the right positions to move forward. And
Yes.
the exercises you're having now and you will have is
Yes.
really is just is the further grounds for people to experience, and as Deming says, the cream rises to the top. So
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
okay,
Yeah,
well, we'll see you next week. We'll talk about the variability next week, and variation, and common cause, and special cause, and some of the data, uh, how that affects work. Uh, it's competency two, and then we'll follow up on that later on performance. We'll touch on the breakthrough improvements, as Dennis just. He has a very nice uh, multiple phases, what you do, and step back, look at your data, what kind of data you need. And those are all in the book. They're really easy
Okay.
to read and follow as well. But I'll keep you posted on those.
Good.
And in some areas of some other areas, as Dennis offered, I'm happy to help out Terry. You have
Okay.
my email address, and uh,
Okay.
it's
Oh,
we're
thank you.
we're in the same boat.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
We
So
we can help each other.
well,
Yes.
I'm
Yes.
always delighted to see people learning about this stuff. So
Yes.
I have open-ended support to all my former students. Let me tell you, they take advantage of it too. So we
Yeah.
meet, and some of them are fathers, and a couple of them are grandfathers now. But
Yeah.
uh, but they've moved up in different organizations, and although they haven't totally transformed the organizations, but they've done some good work in their areas of influence. And I'm always available to them, and we're available to you. So don't hesitate to call in.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
By the way, suggestion for you, Fazel, if you don't use this already with your students, I give all of my students a lifetime guarantee that I'll help them if they call or write, and that's my lifetime, not theirs.
Yeah.
You know,
That's pretty good.
in a seminar, and with that, we close. Somebody asked Dr. Deming, well, how long is this going to take? You know, about changing and improvement. He said, well, we only have the rest of our lives left. So I heard that with my own ears.
Oh, that's so true. Yeah, we only have the rest of our lives.
Yeah. All right. See you next week then.
Basil?
Yeah.
Oh, this is Dirk. I just want to share something really quickly with you.
Oh, sure.
A ex-senator by the name of Ben Sass.
Yes.
He's 60 Minutes did an interview of him. He was diagnosed with terminal cancer, and
he's very sick. Yeah.
he's a month or two past when he was supposed to die or expire or whatever the word you want to use. And in the interview in 60 Minutes, Ben was talking about how the cycle of change is really increasing, how change is getting faster, 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 and how we're living longer. And all I could think of was that diagram that you shared with us a few sessions ago that visually describes that.
Yeah.
And so his talk I thought was very interesting, but I had a big grin at that moment because thanks to you, I was much more aware and understanding what he was saying, thanks to you in this discussion. So I really
thank you. You know,
Yeah.
I read an article about him. He's been very active towards the end.
Yeah.
He has a podcast and he talks about
Yeah.
these things, and
His it was very interesting. It was absolutely worth the 40 minutes to watch the extended interview to think more about thinking. But that point I just want to share with you. It immediately connected me with Peter Scholtes, our discussion, et cetera, is really wonderful. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Okay.
All
Take
right,
care,
well,
everybody.
you all have a good weekend, and we'll see you next week.
Okay.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody. Thank you.